I am Josephine, but everyone calls me Josie. I am 58 years old. For more than 3 decades, my identity was that of a wife, then a mother. After my husband Ben passed, I thought my bond with my only son Kyle would be my life raft. I was wrong. It all came to a head on a rainy Friday evening when Kyle stood in my kitchen, a pair of scissors in his hand, slicing through silver plastic, the credit card he had given me, and yelling that it was time I learned to live without him. Before I share how a single moment of silence changed everything, I am curious to know where you are listening to this from. Are you in your own kitchen or maybe on your commute home? Let me know in the comments below. And if you have ever felt undervalued in your own home, please take a second to subscribe. My journey began right in that moment of shattering. For as long as I could remember, my world had a certain rhythm, a predictable warmth. It revolved around my little house in a quiet Ohio suburb, the one Ben and I bought when Kyle was just a baby. My days started with the same ritual, brewing a full pot of coffee, the rich smell filling the kitchen, then tending to my small flower garden out back. Evenings were for watching the news, and every Wednesday, without fail, a phone call with Kyle. It was a simple life, a careful life. I had become an expert at stretching a dollar, at finding joy in the library's new bookshelf instead of a shopping mall. I told myself it was enough. I had my home paid off, thanks to Ben's life insurance and my small Social Security check. What more did a woman my age need? The truth was, I had built this careful life on a foundation of quiet sacrifice. Ben's heart attack 8 years ago stole him from us with a brutal suddenness. One evening, he was here, laughing at some silly show on television, and the next morning, he was gone. The grief was a physical weight, a heavy coat I could not take off. Kyle, then 24, and just starting his fancy software developer job in the city, stepped in. He handled the funeral arrangements with a grim efficiency that frightened me. A month later, he sat at this very kitchen table and slid a shiny new credit card toward me. "It's a supplementary card, Mom," he said, his voice so much like his father's. "For emergencies, for groceries. I don't want you to ever worry." Back then, it felt like a knight's gesture, my son becoming the man of the family. I was so proud of him and so terribly lost. That card was the beginning of a slow, almost invisible shift. At first, it was just for the big grocery trips, or if the water heater acted up. But as Kyle's career soared, promotions, a big, modern house, a German car that cost more than my first home, his perception of that card and of me began to change. The comments started, always dressed as concern. "You bought the imported olive oil again. That's a luxury item, Mom." Or, "I just paid the statement. What was the $60 at the craft store for? You need more yarn." He would sigh, a heavy, disappointed sound that made my stomach clench. I became an accountant of my own, small pleasures, ready to justify a new novel or a skein of soft wool. I made excuses for him. "He's just looking out for me," I'd whisper to the empty house. "He's busy. He's stressed. He doesn't mean it." The first real crack in the facade came when I mentioned tentatively during one of our Wednesday calls that I was thinking of getting a part-time job, maybe at the local library. The silence on the other end was so deep, I thought the line had gone dead. "A job," Kyle finally said, his voice icy. "What would that look like? People will think I can't provide for my own mother." "It's embarrassing, Mom. Just drop it." I felt the sting right down to my core. The message was clear. My role was to be provided for, quietly, and without fuss. Later that night, sitting alone with a cup of tea, gone cold, I dug out the old filing box from the closet. I traced my finger over the account numbers. From banks, Ben and I had used a fleeting thought of calling our old family lawyer, Mr. Henderson, passing through my mind. But the fear, the habit of compliance, was too strong. I closed the box and put it away. My one sanctuary was my friend Rita. Every Tuesday morning, rain or shine, I walked to her little coffee shop, The Daily Grind. Rita was a force of nature, 60 years old, a widow like me, but she had channeled her energy into building this bustling, warm little business. Sitting at my usual corner table, watching her joke with customers, I saw a reflection of a life I could have had. One Tuesday, after Kyle's comment about the job, it must have shown on my face. "Okay, Josie, out with it," Rita said, sliding into the chair opposite me and pushing a fresh cinnamon roll my way. "You look like you've lost your last friend." I poured it all out the card, the comments, the crushing feeling of being a tolerated expense. Rita listened, her face growing stern. "Sweetheart," she said, her voice low and firm. "That's not care. That's control. I went through something similar with my daughter. Took me a year to realize I was teaching her to treat me like a child." She leaned forward. "You know what you need: a project. Something that's yours. You were the most organized woman I ever knew. You planned the entire church picnic for 5 years running. Why not try a little event planning? I've got a client who needs help with her daughter's bridal shower. Small, intimate. I'll recommend you." The idea was terrifying. Event planning. At my age, Kyle would have a fit, I murmured, already imagining his disapproval. "Forget Kyle for a minute," Rita said, squeezing my hand. "This is about you. What do you want?" What did I want? I wasn't even sure I knew anymore. But a tiny, rusty part of me, a part that had loved color-coding schedules and making budgets, stirred. I heard myself say, "Okay, I'll try." That small yes was still a fragile secret in my heart. When Kyle came over the following weekend with his new girlfriend, Chloe, she was all of 29, glossy and sharp as a new tack. I saw her eyes sweep over my comfortable worn furniture, my collection of family photos in mismatched frames, and her perfectly shaped eyebrows lift just a fraction. During dinner, Kyle held court, talking about his latest project, a potential bonus plans for a vacation in Mexico. Trying to connect to be part of his world, I asked a gentle question about the coding language he used. He cut me off with a wave of his hand. "You wouldn't understand, Mom. It's way too complex. Just know the bonus will be good." He then turned to Chloe and launched back into their travel plans. I sat there feeling about as substantial as the dust motes dancing in the lamplight. Later, after they left, the silence in the house felt different. It wasn't peaceful. It was humiliating. That night, I didn't just feel hurt. I felt a spark of anger. In the quiet dark, I picked up the phone and called Mr. Henderson's office, making an appointment for the following week to review Ben's old estate paperwork. And then, with my heart pounding, I called Rita back and told her I would do the bridal shower. The first step into the unknown felt like jumping off a cliff, but the air for a second was bracing. The bridal shower was for the daughter of one of Rita's regulars. It was not a grand affair, just 20 women in a lovely backyard. But for me, it was everything. I made lists, negotiated with a bakery, arranged flowers from the local farmer's market. The day of the event, a flutter of nervous energy filled me. I wasn't just Josie the widow. I was Josie, the coordinator. And it went beautifully. The mother of the bride, a lovely woman named Susan, pressed an envelope of cash into my hand. Afterward, her eyes warm. "You have a real gift, Josephine. Thank you for making it so perfect." $200. It wasn't the amount. It was the fact that I had earned it. I hid the envelope in the hollow of my oldest, thickest novel, Gone with the Wind. It felt like a thrilling secret. Bolstered by that tiny success, I walked into Mr. Henderson's office the next Monday. He was a kind man in his 70s with a desk that was organized chaos. We made small talk, and then he pulled out a thick file. We reviewed the deed to the house, the life insurance documents I knew by heart, and then he tapped a single sheet. "Now this is the account Ben set up a long time ago. It was linked to the leftover funds from Kyle's education trust. He never touched it. Wanted it to be a nest egg just for you. Something completely separate." I blinked. A nest egg, but Kyle handles all the... Mr. Henderson peered at me over his glasses. "Josie, Kyle has no legal access to this account." Ben was very specific. "It's in your name only," he said, and I remember this clearly. "I want her to have something that's hers, so she's never trapped." He turned his monitor toward me, showing the balance. The numbers on the screen didn't compute at first. It was more than my Social Security would pay in 10 years. It had been sitting there growing quietly for 8 years. The room tilted. I wasn't poor. I wasn't dependent. I had been living like a pauper, by choice, clinging to my son's conditional support, out of some twisted sense of loyalty and grief. The money wasn't the revelation. It was the proof of Ben's faith in me. He had seen me as a person capable of standing on her own, and he had made sure of it. Kyle's control wasn't protection. It was a cage I had willingly walked into. A sob caught in my throat, but it wasn't one of sadness. It was rage, and beneath it, a surge of power, so foreign it left me dizzy. I walked out of Henderson's office with copies of everything my hands steady. The following Friday, Kyle came over after work. He was in a foul mood, grumbling about deadlines and incompetent colleagues. I was still floating on the high of my secret knowledge, busy sketching ideas for another small event Rita had mentioned. In my distraction, I had left the receipt for the shower's party favors on the counter. Kyle picked it up. "What's this?" he asked, his voice tight. I took a deep breath. It was time to test the waters. "Oh, I helped a friend of Rita's with a small party. Just some organizing. It was nice to use my skills again." His face darkened. "A party. You're doing odd jobs now, Mom. We talked about this. It's demeaning. It makes it look like I can't take care of you." "It's not about you, Kyle," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "It's about me doing something I enjoy and earning a little of my own spending money." "Your own money," he scoffed, the sound harsh in the quiet kitchen. "With what? Your Social Security. This is ridiculous. If you can't be trusted to manage money wisely, then you shouldn't have it to mismanage." And then he did it. He pulled out his wallet, extracted the shiny, supplementary card that bore my name, took the scissors from the drawer by the sink, and snipped it clean in half. The snap of the plastic was a gunshot in the silence. He tossed the pieces on the table between us. "You want to be independent, fine. Learn to live without my money. Let's see how you do for a month. Go on." I looked at the broken pieces of plastic. I looked at my son's face, twisted in a blend of anger, and what he probably thought was righteous teaching. And a profound calm settled over me. All the fear, the need to placate him, evaporated. This was his final gift to me, permission to stop pretending. I met his eyes, nodded slowly, and said, "All right, Kyle, I understand." Then I turned my back on him, walked out of the kitchen, and left him standing there alone. I went into the living room and sat in Ben's old armchair. I didn't cry. I felt eerily clear. The performance was over. I retrieved the envelope from Gone with the Wind, counted the cash, and then I picked up the phone. Not to beg, but to plan. First, I called Rita. He did what she gasped when I told her. He set me free, Rita, I said. And I meant it. What's the next step? We talked for an hour. Then I called Mr. Henderson's cell phone, something I had never dared do before. I explained the situation, my voice firm. He listened, then said 3 beautiful words. Come in Monday. I didn't sleep that night. I made lists, not with anxiety, but with purpose. On a fresh notepad, I wrote 1. Henderson, Monday a.m. Transfer all assets to new solo accounts. Remove Kyle as beneficiary from everything. Withdraw operational cash. 2. Close joint savings account, the one he knows about. 3. Change all auto pays, utilities, internet to new account. 4. Book a trip. Visit Cousin Ellen in Florida. 1 week. As dawn broke, painting the sky in stripes of pink and gold, I felt a strength I hadn't known since Ben was alive. I got dressed in my best slacks, in a blouse, the ones I saved for funerals, and rare dinners out. I made coffee and waited. I knew he would come back, not to apologize, but because he needed something. Kyle always did. Sure enough, around 10 that Saturday morning, Kyle's car pulled into the driveway. He got out carrying a paper bag from the expensive French bakery downtown. A peace offering, his version of an apology. His expression was strained, a little sheepish, but there was an underlying expectation there too. Hey, Mom, he said, placing the bag on the kitchen table. Brought you some croissants. Thank you, I said, not moving from where I stood by the sink, pruning shears in my hand from my morning in the garden. He shifted his weight. Listen, about last night. I was stressed, but you have to see my point. He waved a hand, dismissing the argument. Anyway, Chloe really wants this limited edition handbag from Nordstrom. It's a whole thing. They need a deposit this morning to hold it, but my card is maxed out from a business purchase. Temporary limit. Can you put it on your card? I'll pay you back next week when it clears. There it was. I placed the shears down carefully. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the little boy who used to ask me for lunch money, but in the eyes of a man who had forgotten I was a person. My card, I said, my voice perfectly level. You cut it up, Kyle. You said I needed to learn to live without it. He blinked, confused. Well, yeah, but you just call the bank and get a new one issued. It takes 2 minutes. Come on, Chloe is waiting in the car. I'm not calling Kyle, I said. And I closed our joint savings account yesterday. From now on, everything of mine will be in my own accounts. The confusion on his face curdled into irritation. You're not serious. This is some kind of stunt. Mom, cut it out. If you're going to be childish about this, I'll have to reevaluate all my financial support. The internet, the phone bill. Kyle? I interrupted, and my voice had a new tone, one he had never heard. It was calm, solid, unshakable. It was the voice of a woman standing on her own ground. You're not understanding. I don't need your money. Your father made sure of that. There's an investment account, one you never knew about. It's been there for 8 years. In my name only. I let you support me because I thought it made you feel connected, responsible. But I was wrong. It just made me a burden in your eyes. His face went pale, then flushed red. What account? That's impossible. I managed Dad's estate. You managed what you knew about, I said gently. I walked to the side table and picked up the folder from Henderson. I pulled out the statement and handed it to him. He snatched it, his eyes scanning the numbers. I saw the exact moment his reality fractured. His arrogance, his entire identity as the benefactor crumbled. He fumbled for his phone, his fingers shaking as he dialed his bank, confirming the closure of the joint account. He was sputtering, lost. This can't. Why wouldn't you tell me? Because you never asked, Kyle. I said, exhaustion seeping into my newfound strength. You only ever dictated. And because your father wanted me to have something that wasn't subject to anyone's kindness or their moods, not even yours, he stared at me, not as a son looking at his mother, but as a stranger who has suddenly discovered the person he thought he knew is someone else entirely. Without another word, he turned and walked out, leaving the bakery bag on the table. I listened to the sound of his car engine, starting the tires crunching on the gravel, fading away. My hands were trembling, but my resolve was solid steel. The silence in the days that followed was vast, but it was no longer lonely. It was spacious. On Monday, I met with Mr. Henderson. We signed papers. He helped me open a new checking and savings account at a different bank. I transferred the funds. I went to my old bank and formally closed the joint account, the teller giving me a sympathetic smile I didn't need. I came home and spent an afternoon online, switching every bill to autopay from my new account. Then I booked a flight to Sarasota to see my cousin Ellen, a one-way ticket open return. The first time I used my new debit card to pay my electric bill online, I felt a ridiculous thrill. The first time I bought a new tablet, a tool for my budding planning business, without a single thought of what Kyle might say, I felt a giddy freedom. Rita connected me with 2 more clients. I wasn't doing it for survival. I was doing it for joy. I opened a book and signed up for a master gardening class online. A week after the confrontation, Kyle came back. He looked tired, the bluster gone. "Why didn't you trust me?" was his first question, the hurt evident. It was a hard conversation, the hardest of my life. It wasn't about trust, Kyle. It was about respect. You stopped seeing me as a person with my own mind. You saw me as a duty, and then as a problem. I can't have a relationship on those terms. I laid out my new boundaries, simple and clear. No more financial ties. We could have lunch. We could talk about our lives. We could be mother and son. But it would be a relationship between 2 adults, or it would be nothing at all. He didn't like it. He argued, he deflected. But for the first time, I didn't bend. I just repeated my truth calmly until he ran out of words. He left with a mumbled, half-hearted apology for cutting up the card. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a start, raw and real. The morning of my flight, I packed a single suitcase. I looked around my living room at the pictures of Ben, of a young Kyle, of our family. The love in those photos was still real, but the woman looking at them was different. She was no longer a ghost in her own home. She was the owner. Florida was warm, both the weather and the welcome. My cousin Ellen and I sat on her porch, overlooking a small canal, drinking iced tea and talking for hours. We talked about Ben, about growing old, about the quiet fears we both harbored. For the first time in years, I wasn't managing someone else's perception of me. I was just Josie. I swam in the Gulf, the water surprisingly buoyant. I felt that buoyancy inside me too. Back home, the event planning didn't make me rich, but it made me happy. Rita became my unofficial partner, and we had a steady trickle of small, meaningful jobs. The money I earned was mine to spend or save as I pleased. It was an inconceivable luxury. My relationship with Kyle is under construction. We have lunch once a month. Sometimes he slips into old patterns, making a comment about my car being old or my sofa looking shabby. But now I have a response. A simple, quiet look or a change of subject. He usually catches himself. The power dynamic has irrevocably shifted. The love is still there, buried under layers of resentment and habit, but it's no longer poisoned by dependence. We are learning, both of us, how to be in each other's lives without cages or crutches. The deepest lesson I learned wasn't about money. It was about dignity. Unlimited sacrifice doesn't make you a saint. It makes you a ghost. Real love needs air to breathe, and it cannot survive under the weight of control or condescending charity. My strength didn't come from the balance in my bank account. It came from the choice to finally stand up and honor the woman Ben believed I was the woman I had forgotten. I sit on my porch now, watching the bees dance among the flowers I planted myself. The house is just as quiet, but the quiet is different. It's not the silence of a victim. It's the peace of someone who has chosen to reclaim her own story. I don't know what the future holds for Kyle and me, but I know this: whatever happens, I will be okay. And sometimes, that's all we really need to know, that we will be okay. Have you ever had a moment where you realized you had to choose yourself, even when it was the hardest choice? What did that feel like for you? I would love to hear your story in the comments below. If this journey resonated with you, please give this video a like. It lets me know I'm not alone in these experiences. And if you want to join me as I navigate this new chapter, please hit subscribe and share this with someone who might need a reminder of their own strength. Thank you for listening to my story. Wishing you peace and the courage to find your own solid ground.